we're going to start off with a bit of a more difficult topic because there was a very surprising passing in the hockey world just recently, which is that of the Ottawa Senators owner Eugene Melnick. And now the other day you wrote a fantastic article, which I thought was it summarized his very complicated legacy with the Ottawa Senators. That's on your Substack, which can be found at kencampbell.substack.com. And I was just wondering if you just wanted to chat a little bit about Eugene.
Yeah. I think it's probably appropriate to address it and flesh it out a little bit here. First of all, obviously, a terrible tragedy. First and foremost, I mean, Eugene Melnick was only 62 years old.
That's incredible.
That's very, very young. And I mean, I guess you take some solace in the fact that he, was able to get a liver 7 years ago and got 7 more years of life than he otherwise may have been able to get. But I mean, you remember the human being, right? The human being leaves behind a partner. He leaves behind 2 daughters that are, I think, fairly young. I think they're in university or around that age. So, a terrible tragedy, but a very complicated legacy for sure. A polarizing figure in the hockey world. Yeah. And it's funny because, in 2003, he essentially saved the Ottawa Senators from I think it'd be a little premature to say that they were going to move, but that would have been definitely would have been a possibility. Yeah. Whereas he stepped in when really nobody else was willing to, at the time it was 2003. We were a year away from the league shutting down for a year. The Canadian dollar was trading at like 71 cents. Yeah. The New York Rangers had a payroll of 76 million and Minnesota had a payroll of 20 million. The tech industry in Ottawa had gone down the crapper, for lack of a better term. So it wasn't a real sort of super great investment for anybody at the time. And he stepped up and saved that team. So I think the people of Ottawa should remember that. There have been times probably more recently where, it's gone the other way. Mm-hmm. The same team that he saved, he sort of made a veiled threat that he would move. And that really, really struck a lot of people in the wrong way and got a lot of people awfully upset. But the one thing that I will say about Eugene Melnick and what he did is, I think one of the worst parts of all of this is he's not going to get to see through this rebuild this teardown that he sort of authorized in 2018. Yeah. I mean, he saw where the team was going, and he said, "Okay, we're stripping it down to the bone." How many times in the past 2 or 3 decades have Toronto Maple Leaf fans yearned for a rebuild like that? Yeah, yearned for it. Yeah. We're dying for it. Yeah. And ownership was like, nope, we're not going to do it. We're going to build on the fly because we don't want to miss playoff dates. We don't want to miss the revenues that come from playoff dates. We'd rather make the playoffs and win a round or 2 and sort of muck around the middle there than actually, tank and crater and get these elite players that we can get at the top of the draft. And now, they're still a ways away. They're still actually quite a ways away.
The Senators.
Yeah. They're picking they're going to probably pick in the top 5 again this year. Yeah. But, it's there. The Erik Karlsson trade, man, they got good return on that trade. Yeah. They got good return on Mark Stone. They got, for those guys that they moved out of the organization, they got really good young returns. And now these guys are starting to find themselves as NHL players. Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, Alex Formenton, Tim Stutzla, on the way. They've got Jake Sanderson. They've got some decent prospects coming on the way as well. So, it's sad that he's not going to be able to see what that final product is going to look like. It's sad.
I think your point of going back to 2003 was an interesting one because it's so easy for us to get caught up in like recency bias, right? Like what's been happening lately. But ultimately Eugene Melnick was a person.
Yep.
like any of us, subject to the same folly and all the rest of it that people are subject to. And when you think about how quickly, and for a reason, I'm not completely dismissing him, but dismissing this, but for a reason. But when you think about how quickly the Ottawa Senators fans turned on him, there must have been a point in his head, a part of in his brain that said, like, I saved this franchise.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I saved this. I bought this when nobody else would. And there was no guarantee that I was going to make a nickel off of it. As a matter of fact, probably a decent chance I was going to lose some money on it. And so I think that the way that you took that bird's eye view, I think was hugely important because his legacy is complicated, but it also it puts a lens on it. It puts a human lens on it.
Right. Right. I just think you have to have an accurate portrayal on both sides. I mean, there were
journalism, if you will.
If you will. Yeah, there were some dark moments and some things that he did that were, really, really counterproductive to that franchise. But all in all, I would say that he's on the positive side of the ledger for sure.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting now is what happens to the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
Do they... I mean, like I said, his daughters are very young.
Yeah.
I don't know what I think he's said that he's got it set up that it's going to stay in his family for generations. I don't know that that's feasible. I would expect, and I mean, just reading tea leaves, not anything else. I would expect that the team at some point will be sold, and one of the caveats of selling that team it has to stay in Ottawa, and I think that's where you can see some positivity as well, because I mean, part of the negative part of Eugene Melnick's legacy is that he tried to get the rink downtown. It ended up in a bunch of people suing each other, a lot of hard feelings, a lot of crossing swords with the city, and it just never got any traction. And now, if suppose there's some new ownership and maybe they'll be able to resurrect that downtown arena project and get things going with that as well. So
So let's look at the on ice product, because you were talking about the rebuild just a second ago. The opinions on Ottawa's rebuild are extremely mixed. I was listening to your friend Stephen Ellis at the Hockey News, and he said that he thinks that Ottawa will be the next Canadian team to win the Cup.
Well, he's a big stupidity head, so.
You seem to have a lot of those guys as friends, don't you? Present company excluded, of course. But then, Andrew Berkshire was on my Habstition podcast, and he laid out he's not a hot take guy, but he laid out what I consider a very hot take, which is that he thinks that Montreal Canadiens are closer than the Ottawa Senators because he simply just doesn't see that elite style talent such as a Nick Suzuki or even potentially a Cole Caulfield on the Ottawa Senators. He sees a lot of very good pieces as opposed to like the kind of build around sort of pieces, right? Romanov's a good piece. They shouldn't be building their defense around him because he's just fine.
Yeah.
So my curiosity is, do you think that there's any specific piece of the Ottawa Senators that's missing in this rebuild?
I do. I think their bottom six is really not up to par.
Well, depth is the easiest.
Depth. And I think, if you're going to build a team and you're going to take advantage of this young talent, at some point you've got to spend money, right? You got to spend money. You got to be a cap team. And they're not a cap team, and they're not close to being a cap team right now, right? So I look at a guy like, I don't know, like say Connor Brown. He's up, I think after next year, $3.6 million. He'll be 28 years old.
Yeah.
He's going to want more money.
It's traditionally when players look for their payday.
Right. And he's going to want more money, and he's probably going to walk. Well, then what are you doing? Like if you can't find a place for a hardworking guy that's provides leadership and kills penalties and does all the little things and is coachable and that, then are you really in the game? Or are you just constantly cycling young players through and then becoming a farm team for the rest of the NHL, which is what Arizona Coyotes did for years, right?
Yeah.
Like by the time they get to be at a spot where they can help, well, you can't afford them, so you trade them for more futures, then more futures come in, and it just becomes a big cycle.
Yeah.
I like a team that has, Josh Norris, Tim Stützle, and maybe Shane Pinto down the middle, but you know what? That's a good point. There's not elite talent. I mean, is Thomas Chabot a Norris Trophy winner? He might be.
He might be probably
the
closest thing to elite talent in the sense of he's a number one defenseman.
Yeah.
There's
yeah. And
I don't know that there's 32 bona fide number one defensemen in the league, just like I don't know that there's 32 bona fide starting goaltenders in the league, and I don't know that there's 32 number one centers in the league. Like actually guys that you would say, yes, he's the one that I want as my first line center.
Right.
And I would say that if there's 15 or 20 number one defensemen in the league, I'd say Thomas Chabot is one of them.
Sure. And I think, too, they're tired of hearing the word rebuild in Ottawa, and they should be tired of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and Pierre Dorion said before this year, I don't want to hear that word anymore. Well, sorry, but it's still...
then you got to win.
Yeah. Then you have to not be rebuilding, right? And they still, they traded Nick Paul.
That was a confounding one.
Yeah, and then they picked up Travis Hamonic, which was the biggest head scratcher of the whole trade deadline, as far as I was concerned. So to me, I mean, the rebuild is still going on. It's still going to be going on for a little while. Hopefully, maybe. I know Ottawa Senator fans don't want to hear this, but I'm sure they don't want to be in the lottery in 2023.
Yeah.
But if you're in the lottery in 2023, you're getting one of those guys. You're getting one of those guys.
Yeah.
You're getting Connor Bedard. You're getting Adam Fantilli.
Yeah.
You're getting Matvei Michkov. That then you've got your guy.
I call them Connor Bedard, Michkov, and the other fella.
Oh, okay.
Because I always forget Fantilli's name.
Yeah, well, you're going to be hearing a lot about the other. You're going to be hearing a lot about the other fella next year. He's going to be playing at the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
And he's a great, big, strong, talented guy.
I know.
Yeah.
It's my stupidity. I call "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" that movie with George Clooney and the other two fellas. And those other two fellas are fantastic. So
okay.
This is on me, is what I'm trying to say.
It's on you. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is my horrible memory. Okay, so let's switch gears.
But that's interesting. Like that. I never thought of it that way. Like they have a lot of good players, but they don't have any first team all-stars.
Well, you see,
studs, award winners. Future Hall of Famers, maybe. Thomas Chabot, maybe.
You see, you called your friend a big stupid head. I've got very smart friends.
Right. Okay.
That I hang around.
Okay.
On the flip side, so and I would consider Andrew Berkshire one of the smarter fellas that I know.
He makes a lot of sense with that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no Suzuki. There's no Caulfield in Ottawa right now.
Yeah. And now they've of course got a lot more pieces.
Yeah, they've got
Montreal does, but in terms of that guy that you build around, like Montreal doesn't have to worry necessarily about getting a Shane Wright this year because they've got Nick Suzuki, who is, if not already, guaranteed by next year as one of the top 15 centers.
And I'm not convinced Shane Wright is that guy either.
Interesting.
He might be, but I'm not convinced he is.
Okay.
Yep.
Before we get off the Ottawa Senators, any guesses how long before they reach contender status?
Wow. I'd say at least 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Still another couple of years of tough sliding, I think.
Yeah. But not rebuilding.
Especially in the East, in that division.
I know.
I mean, that's a brutal division. It's tough. I think the days of the Ottawa Senators, hoarding draft picks and getting 3 first-round picks and accumulating all these young assets. I think that part has been done.
Yes,
and they've got the product of that.
Yep.
And it's coming up.
Yeah.
I mentioned Jake Sanderson. I mean he's one of the best players in college hockey.
Yeah.
I worry about his ability to stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be an absolute top 2 stud in the NHL. So
really,
yeah, oh yeah, he'll be a hell of a defenseman.
Yeah,
yeah.